Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about the developing scenario with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the impact that it is having on potentially US and in China relations. Until now, China had kept a pretty low profile, not getting too involved in the directly in what was going on in the Gulf as US and Israel continued to attack Iran and all the developments that have taken place since the 28th of February. I just want to let you guys know that I am recording this from the Palermo airport. You can see the beautiful airport behind me, and you will occasionally hear some announcements. So please bear with me. I'm flying back to Rome. I have a lecture tomorrow at the University of Louis. And anyway, so there are some interesting developments. So I want to share with you a statement made by the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent. He gave an interview in which Bessent says that China has been an unreliable partner by hoarding oil during war. And then he goes on to make some very strong comments. He says that China has been unreliable three times in the past 5 years. Once during COVID, when they hoarded healthcare products. Second, with regards to the rare earth material, minerals, the magnets, etc., that China is using as a leverage against Donald Trump every time he tried to impose tariffs on China. And then he says that during the current crisis with Iran, uh, China has been irresponsible because China has continued to not only buy oil but also hoard it. What I guess Scott Besson wants China to do is to reduce the supply pressure on the global markets for oil, a supply pressure that has been created by America's Israel first foreign policy. The United States attacking Iran at the behest of Netanyahu is, is not irresponsible, but China protecting its own national interests by buying oil. Who knows how long this conflict could go? And since most of Iran's Chinese oil, a large segment of it comes from from near the Gulf region, it is but natural that it will protect. But apparently, Scott Bessent expects China to to basically clean up after the mess that the United States is making in the global arena. So anyway, in this context, there has been a thought going around, and they say that all of this, Donald Trump's intervention in Venezuela and Donald Trump's attacks on Iran, are not really about Iran, but it is about China, about controlling the oil supply to China. And so, for example, if the price of oil goes up or supply goes down, then the Chinese manufacturing, which is going on, like China has now 50% of the global capacity, but all those Chinese factories, which are out competing manufacturing in most of the world, are operating at very thin margins, and some of them assisted by local governments, which are borrowing money and providing subsidies to make Chinese companies more and more competitive. So the perception is that if the price of energy goes up and if the margins for these Chinese companies goes down, then maybe they'll go bankrupt or maybe they will not be able to compete in the global arena. But what I don't understand is if the price of energy goes up across the board, as it has, the oil was at $65 per barrel before the war began, and right now it is at about 95. It has reached as high as 119. This is Brent oil price. So if the price of oil goes up, while it'll make Chinese manufacturing a bit more expensive, but it will also make their competitors' manufacturing also more expensive. So thus the baseline will go up, and everything else that makes China more competitive, then European and American and other countries' manufacturing will remain in place. So I don't understand the logic that unless you cut off the supply of oil only to China. Now that is where this interesting thing about Iran and Venezuela comes in. So I'm going to show you a few interesting charts. But first, before that, let me show you this chart about the, not this one. I want to show you a chart about, not this one either, this one. Okay, so this is the global strategic petroleum reserves. Okay, so as you can see, I have a lot of time on the airport. I got here early, so I was able to make some nice graphics for you. So these are the top 5 countries with oil reserves. So China has 1.3 billion barrels of reserves at the moment. So it is about 200 days worth of reserves. So if China doesn't get a single drop of oil, it can survive for about 200 plus days. The United States is just about one third of that at 413 million barrels. Now, I don't know whether this 413 million barrels includes the 172 that the United States has promised to put on the global market to reduce the supply problem with the International Energy Agency. You know, they plan to put up 400 million barrels to increase the supply to bring the price down. And of that, 172 million barrels were promised by the United States. So I don't know whether that this figure 413 is minus 172 or not. Anyway, the third biggest, I guess, strategic reserve is with China, 380 to 400. I was very surprised. I didn't know South Korea was also doing a pretty good job of this. And India is in the 5th place. I know that India has reserves for over 20 days, 30 days. So India has, but look at the contrast. India has 39 million and China has 1,300 million. So, like the US has 10 times, more than 10 times India's reserves, and China has more than 30 times, uh, 30, 35, or rather 40 times more. So, this is huge. So, the point I'm trying to make is that even if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked and the United States uses this as an opportunity to put pressure on the Chinese economy, it probably is not going to work. But the Chinese have got really very upset about it. And the Chinese government has issued a response. If I can find that for you, here is a response by the Chinese government. And they have basically announced that the Strait of Hormuz is open to the US. China warns US against blockading Iranian ports. So they have said that you are trying to bring us back to the jungle rule. You're not respecting international law. And this is a pretty strong statement that the Chinese ministry has made, and I find that quite fascinating. That said that we have trade and energy agreements with Iran. We expect others not to interfere in our affairs. The Strait of Hormuz is open to us. So what China is saying is that the U.S. better not stop the ships that are coming from Iran and other region because China buys from Saudi Arabia also. So the oil that is coming to China should not be stopped. Now we will see whether that happens. That right now, since the U.S. blockade of the Hormuz has been there only for a few hours, we do not have a proper indication of how well or how badly it is going, but or to what extent which ships are being stopped and which ships are being allowed. That has not become fully clear. So far, the Americans have clarified by saying that we are only stopping those ships which are going to the Iranian ports and not those which are coming from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, etc. But what about ships which are going to China but are coming from the Iranian ports? Is the US stopping that too? Well, that is where the bone of contention really is. Anyway, so that is where the tension lies, and that is the thing that I wanted to share. But Now, you saw this, and so China is not really that worried. Neither is the U.S. worried. Plus, the U.S. is a major producer of oil too. So both U.S. and China are sitting quite pretty now, even if there is a supply problem with regards to oil. But this is the other important thing that I wanted to point out. So China has been buying, shall we say, oil which the West has sanctioned at a discount. Okay, so if you look at Iran, China buys one point. This is before the war, obviously. 1.38 million barrels per day. China's total consumption is, total imports are about 11 point something. As I pointed out, they are 11.6 million barrels per day. And of that, 1.38 China imports uh, from Iran, which is about 13 to 14% of all of China's imports. And it gets them at a discount of $5 to $13. So if the at that time the Brent benchmark was $65 before the war started, 65 to 70. So you could say that China was either buying it at say 52 or maximum 60. So China was buying oil at a premium, and China bought 90% of Iranian oil, even though it was only 13 to 14% of China. China also bought, as you can see from this picture, before the United States went into Venezuela and took control of Venezuelan oil, China was buying anywhere between 389,000 to 760,000 barrels per day. In fact, at the time when the US basically captured Venezuelan President Maduro, or rather kidnapped him or arrested him, whatever, and brought him back, China was importing about 389 thousand barrels per day, about one third of a million, which is just 3 to 4% of China's imports. But China was getting $10 to $20 discount from Venezuela. So if the oil market was at 65, China was getting it at 45. Can you imagine that? 45 to 50 barrels. So it was a huge advantage. And this is something that some of the people, commentators here in the West, that is giving Chinese manufacturing an edge. There are some these, they call them kettle pot, small refineries, which are making profit only because they are able to get the crude. Some of this crude is very problematic and requires a lot of work to improve. Even the Iranian crude is not as good as, say, the Saudi. So those Chinese refineries were operating at a profit because China was buying oil at a discount. And then you can see what China was also buying from Russia was about 800,000 barrels per day, which is clearly less than the Iranian, but more than. So about 7 to 8% of its energy was coming from there. Uh, I want to show you some more data about this. So where does China get the rest of its oil? So China is very diversified when it comes to it. So like I said, from Russia, the non-sanctional point gets about 17.4% of its supplies come from Russia, which is way more than Iran. From Saudi Arabia, it's 14%. From Iraq, it's 10 to 13%. That means some of it is coming through the Strait of Hormuz, and then Brazil, 7 to 9%. And then suddenly China is also looking at Canada. Apparently, there has been a 313% growth in the amount of oil that China is buying from Canada. Uh, as you recall, the relations between China and Canada were not very good for a while, but now they are beginning to, I guess, mend their ways. When Trudeau was Prime Minister of Canada, he got a scolding from Xi Jinping. So Xi Jinping not only scolded him, but they also released the video which was quite humiliating for Justin Trudeau. At that time, China-Canada relations were not good, but given that now the United States has been harassing Canada on many levels, Carney has been trying to repair his relations with all the countries that Canada had bad relations with, particularly Saudi Arabia, India, and China. So these are some of the data that I wanted to share with you to show that there is a perception among some people that by blocking or controlling Venezuelan oil and also controlling Iranian oil, the United States may be actually in reality targeting China, or rather, that is also one of the byproducts of this aggressive foreign policy that the US is adopting. I don't think that the Trump administration is capable of strategic thinking and strategic depth. They, they, they're more capable of doing stupid shit, that's all. I mean, this entire operation with respect to Iran uh, clearly tells you that they had wrong expectations. They completely misjudged it and miscalculated it. And they are surprised by the resilience that the Iranian has shown. They are stumped that Iran is not surrendering in spite of the overwhelming power that the United States has brought to bear. And right now, we see two nuclear powers, Israel and the United States, relentlessly attacking Iran and Iran standing up to them, in spite of the fact that Iran has absolutely no air defense system to talk about. So, given all of this, the terrible strategic planning with no exit plan, no off ramp for Trump, it appears that I don't think that we should assume that there is some far fetched strategy behind this particular attack on Iran. Yes, there are unintended consequences, and an unintended consequence could be an economic crisis which could eliminate the benefits and profits that many small scale industries are enjoying because of the increasing price of oil. So not only will Chinese manufacturing get hurt, but manufacturing in India and other places could also get badly damaged as a result of sustained prices. And as I keep telling you these days, that some smart aleck oil experts said that oil prices shoot up like a rocket, but they come down like a feather, which means that the moment there is slight uncertainty about supply, the price just rockets up as it did. And But it does not come down at the same speed, which means that even if the war stops now and we go back to allowing 100 to 150 ships through the Strait of Hormuz, uh, even then the price of oil will take several months to come down to what it was before the war started. So so anyway, this is an interesting development, and which has made China engage the conflict a bit more aggressively, and has brought the United States and China in a confrontational situation where China is saying, "You dare not stop our ships that are coming to us because we've already paid for these goods and we are buying these goods." So in that sense, you could argue that Donald Trump will have to make that decision whether to to spoil relations with Iran over this war, with China over this war. This is a challenge that the U.S. will have to consider. Is it worthwhile to stop this? And even it's not just China which is upset with the United States decision to basically blockade the Strait of Hormuz. Even Saudi Arabia is quite upset, and apparently it has been pressuring. The Saudis have been pressuring the United States. So there was a report in the Wall Street Journal that says that the Saudi government was pressing the US to drop its naval blockade because they are worried that that Iran would retaliate through the Houthis to close the Bab al Mandab, the Red Sea route, and so then Saudi Arabia at the moment is able to ship oil to its western shore, and from there, through Bab al Mandab, send oil out, and they feel that blocking the Strait of Hormuz might tempt Iran to block the Red Sea. So we have a very interesting situation from a geopolitical perspective, and that raises the question: will American allies in the Gulf support the blockade of Strait of Hormuz, and will it also lead to an aggressive exchange and hostilities between the U.S. and China on this issue? And could this impact the potential value of Donald Trump's visit to China? He's going to China in a few weeks, and he's expecting to resolve several issues with regards to trade, with regards to rare earth minerals, etc. And if there is tension, then it will not be a good visit. So I think both parties are working hard to make sure that Trump's visit to China is a successful one, but this blockade of Hormuz could create extra tension. So anyway, thank you for watching Conversation. I hope that you were able to still enjoy it. I understand that there is disturbances here, but what can you say? I'm traveling. I was in Palermo for the past few days in Sicily. I've shared some photographs on the community posts about the architecture and the buildings, the medieval atmosphere of the city. It's absolutely beautiful. If you are nearby, you must visit Palermo. It's a must-visit place, for no doubt. I'm just a bit unhappy that I came here alone. I wish my family was here with me, so I could have enjoyed it more. But anyway, thank you for watching Conversations, and please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Like this video, press the bell icon, and share this video with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtada Khan. Take care.